Bit more news coming out of the RFU. Nick Evans, new attack coach. Good decision, do you think, Goody?
Very good, actually. And credit to Steve Borthwick because, and I said it on this podcast, Steve Borthwick has been someone that sat under Eddie Jones's wing for quite some time prior to leaving to go and get head coach experience and take the job at Leicester. So he was with Eddie Jones at Japan, England, and then off he went. And a lot of people said when Steve Borthwick got the job, it's going to be just much more of the same. You look at how Leicester won the league last year, heavily reliant on their kicking game. As we've said in this podcast, they built from the bottom up. So they built their defence, they built their driving maul, their set piece, and it was very much the way that Eddie Jones has tried to play it and kind of annoyed some fans without trying to excite England fans at all. So for Steve Borthwick, he's obviously got his right-hand man with him in Kevin Sinfield, who will run the defence. But to go and get Nick Evans, who is one of the sharpest rugby brains I think I've ever come across. And I know Nick Evans reasonably well off the field. You watch the way Harlequins attack, and you watch the way he talks about the game and how laid back and relaxed he is, while also being on it. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant signing to get him to run the attack. You just hope that he's allowed to use his knowledge and his thoughts on the game and implement that in terms of the attack for England. And in doing so, I think it's very exciting. All of a sudden, in 2 weeks, and I might be deluded because I'm an England fan, I speak to a lot of England fans out there and they're all absolutely pumped now for the Six Nations, and there's a lot of positivity around it. Whereas before, we heard all the boos at Twickenham, the doom and gloom around Eddie Jones, and it was, we're fed up of Eddie. What's next in the press? He's not going to pick players in position. He's not going to pick players on form. He doesn't care about the Premiership. Now, we've got the best attack coach in the Premiership, probably in Nick Evans. We've got Steve Borthwick at the helm, and we've got the best bloke in the world ever in terms of inspiring people in Kevin Sinfield as our coaching trio. So Richard Cockerell's there as well. I'm massively buzzing about it. Can't wait to see the England squad next week. It gets announced next Monday, so we'll chat about that next week on the pod. But in reality, I think it's a masterstroke by him. And hopefully Nick Evans will be the yin to Steve Borthwick's yang, because they're very different people. James.
And it's only the Six Nations, isn't it? It's only for the Six Nations. Well, England won't be playing after the Six Nations, will they? But I think it looks like it could be a long-term thing, hey?
Yeah, you say that, but when Nick Mullins interviewed Nick Evans yesterday during the game, poor Nick Evans, right? He's there as Quinn's attack coach, and Nick Mullins is interviewing him, asking him the first three questions about England.
What do you mean he's checked out already, and that's why Quinn struggled?
I didn't say anything, mate. I think they struggled because it was battering down with rain. There was no Joe. What do you mean it was Joe Marler's fault, Jim? But he said, look, it could be more. There's obviously a negotiation gone on. It sits reasonably well with Quins because I think they've got a bye week during the Six Nations. Tabo Matson's interview pre-game. It's a massively exciting thing for Nick Evans and a kind of progress in his career to get that recognition and also off the back of all the work he's done at Quins. He knows the Premiership inside out. He's implemented a game plan with Quins that gets bums on seats in the stadium through the turnstiles, but also bums off seats with excitement with the likes of Caden Murley, Marcus Smith, Joe Marchant, these exciting young players that give the freedom to other guys in the England shirt as well. And we've got, hopefully, an attacking outfit married up with some steely Steve Borthwick detail and Kevin Sinfield's defence, and you might have a great recipe there for England to win the World Cup again. Come on, England.
Just when we thought that Owen Farrell was a shoe-in as the 10, now you've got Nick Evans, who's a big fan of Marcus Smith, obviously.
He'll be a massive fan of Owen Farrell as well. Everyone is. Anyone you speak to at the top end of the game will say that Owen Farrell will be in their top three players. I'm speaking for them here, but anyone that I've spoken to in and around the game, Owen Farrell. I'm not saying that he is head and shoulders above Marcus Smith. Well, I kind of am. I think he is. I think Owen Farrell is better than Marcus Smith. I think Nick Evans will know that. I think Marcus Smith has got time on his hands. He can come through. He can learn. But I just don't think he's at Owen Farrell's level yet. I think that is clear to say, Goody. I think it's clear to see.
And basically, I think Jim's saying that with our attack now, the Calcutta Cup's coming home, eh, Jim?
Who knows? Have you seen the form of some of the Scotland players?
Edinburgh ones.
Glasgow.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. And listen, the bottom line is Nick Evans, very exciting for England rugby. I'm with Jim. Owen Farrell, dependent on his ban, and we'll get onto that in a minute if he does get banned. should start at 10. Marcus Smith's going to come back over the next week or so, 2 weeks potentially, and play a couple of games. But he's ideal to have on the bench to come off and change the game. If he was in sparkling form, you'd look at the decision of Nick Evans and how much sort of power will he have in selection. But it's a no-brainer. If Owen Farrell isn't banned for the Six Nations, which I don't think he will be, and we'll get onto that in a sec, he's the form 10 in Europe at the minute for me.
Pod.
Rugby pod.